This sort of a strike on Doha is really unprecedented by Israel. They've certainly undertaken covert assassination attempts and other things, but a military strike on Doha by Israel is unprecedented. And let's remember, Doha is a partner of the United States. It hosts the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, El Udeid Air Base. So we're really looking at something quite unprecedented.
Quite unprecedented. And I mean, to reiterate what Matt said, apparently the U.S. was informed before this was going to happen, though Israel made clear that they were acting alone. But what does this mean for the U.S. relationship with the Gulf states?
Well, it's interesting to look at the president's press secretary remarks this afternoon, where she really sort of went to great lengths to underscore the important role that Qatar plays from the perspective of the United States. So I think the U.S. is really trying to do some damage control here. But without a doubt, it's got to raise concerns in the minds not only of the Qataris, but all of the GCC states about the situation they find themselves in the Middle East today, where Israel seems to be, essentially acting with impunity, undertaking strikes where and how it decides it needs to, regardless of whether or not that country has a particularly strong relationship with the U.S., let alone actually hosting significant military installations. So I think this is a moment of great peril in the region.
So I guess Israel is allowed to act that way solely because of the support of the United States, right? At one point, you would have seen Europe behind, and Germany, of course, firmly behind Israel's military. But how much has that support eroded as the IDF continues to devastate Gaza and kill so many women and children in the territory?
Well, I think Israel is in an incredibly difficult position in the international community because of its conduct of the war in Gaza. We've seen a growing international outcry regarding conditions in Gaza. And now today we've also seen condemnation, for example, French President Macron condemning the Israeli action. I think increasingly there's just worry that these kinds of actions are really transgressing international norms, international law, and they're creating a far more dangerous Middle East with implications not just for the region, but certainly for U.S. security and frankly for Israel's security.
And I wonder what the end game is, Mona, because it feels like that's getting increasingly hard to see. Of course, we're coming up on another, milestone with October 7th, just about a month away here. And I mean, what do you think the path forward is here? Is it conceivable that we will see some material cooling down, or what are the steps that we need to see to get there?
I wish I had an answer for you about what the end game is, because honestly, I think this latest attack really defies logic. As you rightly note, the second year anniversary of October 7 is approaching, a horrific terrorist attack. But Israel's nowhere closer to resolving and addressing that conflict today than it was 2 years ago. There are Israeli hostages who remain in Gaza. And unfortunately, because of this strike, the Qataris have now suspended their role as mediator, and it feels as though the prospects for a ceasefire and hostage release in Gaza are further away today than they've ever been.
Is there any chance that the Palestinians get back to a place where a two-state solution is possible, or is that just out the window at this point?
Well, one never wants to say things are out the window, but I think both Israelis and Palestinians are at a historic divide, and a two-state solution appears, further and further out on the horizon today. But that said, we can never discount the possibility of dramatic shifts and openings that are created in moments of crisis like the one we find ourselves in. I can't tell you what that looks like right now.
Right. What's the alternative, Mona? I mean, what happens to, we saw press reports today that the IDF was trying to evacuate 1 million people from Gaza City, and there are obviously many more across both Gaza and the West Bank. So where will those people go now that their homes have been completely and utterly destroyed?
Well, they're being forcibly evacuated into smaller and smaller areas of Gaza. And I think this is provoking concerns among Israel's neighbors, Egypt in particular, that this could lead to even expulsion into Egypt, which would be a huge red line. And so I think, unfortunately, in the absence of movement toward peace, the prospects are for deepening and more dangerous conflict.